When I step onto the ice, the world becomes silent. Every eye watches, every heartbeat echoes in the arena, and yet, in that silence, I find my strength. People often see the medals, the applause, the glory, but what they don't see are the countless mornings when the rink was so cold that my breath turned into clouds, the nights when my legs trembled from exhaustion, and the moments when failure whispered louder than success. I was not born to be a champion. I became one because I refused to surrender when the path became impossible. Every stumble, every fall, every tear on the ice was a lesson written into my journey. And maybe that is why you are here today, not just to listen to a story of victories, but to discover how challenges can transform into your greatest source of power. South Korea called me their Queen of Ice, but titles mean nothing without the story behind them. What matters is the discipline, the courage to keep going when the world doubts you, and the determination to rise after every fall. This is not just my story, it can be yours too, because success is never about perfection, it's about persistence. It is about believing in yourself even when no one else does. So, I invite you to stay with me until the very end of this journey, because what you will hear is not just the story of an athlete. It is the blueprint of resilience, passion, and the unshakable belief that you, too, can achieve the impossible. When I look back to where it all began, I see a little girl with a pair of skates too big for her feet and dreams too heavy for her small shoulders. The rink was not glamorous then. It was cold, unforgiving, and sometimes even frightening. I remember stepping onto the ice for the first time, stumbling more than I glided, falling so often that the bruises became part of me, but something inside me refused to let go. Each time I fell, there was a voice within whispering, "Get up, try again," and so I did. In those early years, nothing came easily. Resources were limited, opportunities were scarce, and the idea of competing with the world seemed almost impossible. There were times when I wondered if the sacrifices were worth it, times when my family carried burdens heavier than anyone should have to bear, all for the sake of a dream that was still uncertain. Yet, in the middle of that uncertainty, a spark grew stronger. Every challenge, every obstacle, became a reminder that if I wanted to rise, I would need to embrace the hardship instead of running from it. The ice became my teacher. It taught me patience when I wanted results too quickly. It taught me resilience when pain tempted me to quit, and it taught me humility, reminding me that greatness is not achieved overnight. It is built slowly, through quiet mornings of repetition, through nights when no one is watching, and through faith that tomorrow will reward today's effort. I was never handed a path to success. I had to carve it myself, step by step, blade by blade, against winds that told me it could not be done. And maybe that is the true beginning of every story worth telling. Not when everything is perfect, but when you are willing to rise from imperfect beginnings and still chase the impossible. The long hours of training were not just a routine, they became my life. When other children laughed and played outside, I was circling the rink, repeating the same move until my body ached and my mind begged for rest. There were no shortcuts, no secret. Only the discipline of showing up again and again, even when my heart longed for an easier road. I learned quickly that talent alone could not carry me. It was discipline that carved my path forward. Every day began before the sun rose, when the world was still asleep. The air was cold, my muscles stiff, yet I tied my skates tighter, reminding myself that every painful stride was shaping me into something stronger. Coaches corrected me, sometimes harshly, and I accepted it, because I knew excellence demanded more than comfort. There were days when tears blurred my vision, but instead of walking away, I stayed on the ice until those tears became fuel. Discipline meant sacrificing pieces of life that others take for granted. It meant missing celebrations, losing carefree moments, and giving up ease for something greater. Each repetition, each drill, each correction was a step toward a dream too precious to abandon. The discipline was not just about perfecting jumps or spins, it was about perfecting my will. It was about training my mind to believe that no matter how tired, no matter how defeated, I could still find strength to continue. Sometimes I wondered why I pushed myself so relentlessly, but the answer was always there in the silence of the rink, because I refused to let my potential go to waste. Discipline gave me the courage to stand in front of expectations bigger than myself, to face pressures that might have crushed me, and to keep moving forward when every fiber of me wanted to stop. It was the quiet, unseen hours of discipline that built the foundation for every moment the world would one day witness. And then came the moments when the lights turned on, when silence filled the arena, and when every movement was no longer mine alone, but carried the weight of a nation's expectations. Pressure is a strange companion. It can suffocate you, or it can sharpen you. I learned to let it sharpen me. Every eye watching, every voice waiting to judge, could have broken me. But instead, I chose to see it as a stage where courage was the only performance that truly mattered. There were times when fear crept in, the fear of failing, of disappointing those who believed in me, of falling short when it mattered most. My heart would race before competitions, my hands tremble as I adjusted my skates. Yet in that trembling I found a truth. Courage does not mean the absence of fear, it means skating despite it. The pressure pushed me to discover strength I didn't know I had, to step onto the ice with determination that was greater than the noise around me. I realized that the world doesn't remember the falls. They remember how you rise. And so, whenever doubt tried to weaken me, I leaned into the years of discipline, the countless sacrifices, and the memories of every moment I had risen after falling. The ice demanded my courage, and I answered not with perfection, but with resilience. Each performance became more than a routine, it became a promise to myself, to my family, and to every person watching who needed to believe that courage can exist even under crushing pressure. I was no longer just skating for medals. I was skating to show that fear could be turned into strength, that pressure could be transformed into beauty. And with every jump, every glide, every landing, I was proving that courage is not about avoiding the weight of expectations. It is about carrying them with grace. But even courage alone was not enough, because the path I walked was not already paved for me. There were no guarantees, no traditions of champions from my country to follow. I had to step into uncharted territory to show that someone from South Korea could not only compete on the world stage, but redefine what was possible. It meant carrying not just my own dream, but the weight of opening doors for others who would come after me. Each time I competed internationally, I felt the difference. The spotlight was harsher, the skepticism louder. Some doubted if I truly belonged among the world's best, as if greatness had boundaries defined by geography or history. That doubt only fueled me more. I wanted to break those boundaries, to prove that dedication and determination know no borders. With every routine, I wasn't just skating for myself. I was skating to expand the horizon of what was imaginable for my country, and especially for the young girls who dared to dream beyond limitations. It was never easy. Carrying that responsibility felt heavier than any medal, but it also gave me purpose. Every barrier in front of me became a challenge worth embracing. I wanted to show that success is not reserved for a chosen few. It can belong to anyone who dares to work relentlessly and believe deeply. Breaking barriers wasn't only about competing, it was about shifting perspectives. It was about teaching the world that champions can rise from unexpected places, that women can lead in arenas once dominated by others, and that impossible ceilings can be shattered with persistence. The ice became my canvas, and on it I painted not just performances, but possibilities. And in those moments, I wasn't just skating against opponents. I was skating against limitations themselves, determined to leave behind a path wide enough for others to follow. And when those barriers finally gave way, when the world began to recognize the strength behind every performance, I reminded myself that victory is not the destination, it is a reflection of the journey. The medals, the trophies, the records, they shine brightly, but they are only symbols. What mattered more was the way I carried them, not as proof of being better than others, but as gratitude for everyone who had walked beside me, supported me, and believed when the path seemed impossible. On the podium, hearing my country's anthem play, I felt a rush of pride, but also a deep sense of humility. I knew that every triumph was born from struggle, and that no victory belonged to me alone. It belonged to the sacrifices of my family, to the voices of those who encouraged me, and to every young dreamer watching who needed to see that greatness can be achieved with grace. Winning did not make me untouchable. It made me more human, because I understood how fragile success is, and how easily it can slip away without respect for the process. Humility became my anchor. It reminded me never to lose sight of the values that carried me from a small rink to the grandest stages in the world. Even in moments of triumph, I held onto the discipline, the courage, and the resilience that shaped me. Because victory without humility fades quickly, but victory embraced with gratitude becomes timeless. Every smile I gave, every bow of respect after a performance came from the heart. It was my way of saying that no matter how high I rose, I remained connected to the ground that built me. And in that balance between glory and humility, I discovered that true victory is not measured only by medals, but by the way you touch hearts and inspire others through the grace you carry in moments of success. And perhaps that is why my story did not end when the competitions were over. The medals found their place in glass cases, the cheers of the arenas slowly faded, but something far more lasting remained, the realization that my journey had become a source of strength for others. I began to see young faces looking at me with the same wide eyes I once had, eyes filled with dreams waiting to be believed in. That was when I understood the true power of inspiration. What began as a personal pursuit had grown into something much greater. My falls, my struggles, my triumphs, each one became a message to someone who needed to hear it. A message that said, your dreams are valid, your challenges can be overcome, and your voice matters. I never set out to be a symbol, but when I saw the courage in others awaken because of my journey, I realized that this was the greatest reward of all. Inspiration is not about standing on a pedestal. It is about opening a door and inviting others to step through it. I wanted every young girl and boy who watched me skate to see more than jumps and spins. I wanted them to see the discipline, the courage, the humility, and to believe that those same qualities lived within them too. Because greatness is not reserved for the few, it is awakened in those who dare to persist. Even now, I continue to remind myself that the responsibility of inspiring others is as important as any medal I have ever won. My story is only meaningful if it helps someone else write their own, and so I share it not to celebrate what I achieved, but to pass on the belief that no dream is too distant, no obstacle too heavy, and no beginning too small to lead to something extraordinary.